YouTube, how's everybody doing today? Got 3, 2, 1 Facebook Live. How's everybody doing today? Hey guys, thank you very much for hopping on here with us. Very excited. Levi and Nari Yoder are with me today. I'm excited about this interview just because how they met, how God brought them together, and then your testimony, your background, and obviously I know your background. We would be like second or third cousins.
It's something like that.
Something like that. Our grandpas, they come from a family of 20 children. Okay, so it went, because I know my dad and your dad would have been like second cousin. At first I thought it was first cousin. So if they were second cousin, we're more like third cousin or fourth cousin. But it's too much to figure out, so I was just like, you know what? Levi Yoder's my cousin.
Yeah.
And I met them, him and his wife, at the Yoder reunion. There's a whole bunch of us that are now former Amish, so it's a blessing just to be able to meet family that I didn't know I had when I go to these reunions. So, your background is a Muslim nation.
Nation of Islam, Muslim.
Nation of Islam, and he's Amish background, like my background.
Amish, yeah.
So I'm just so fascinated about this. So let's start with yours. Did you have to leave the Amish, or did your parents leave the Amish?
I had to leave the Amish.
Okay.
Yes. That was when I was 19. I left.
Mm-hmm.
I had already joined the church. It just got to a point finally I was like, I asked so many questions, and everybody was like, either like, oh well, this is just how we've always done it, or they would give me some kind of half explanation. And it just didn't really make sense. It got to the point where I felt like I just can't live the rest of my life trying to live something I don't understand.
Right.
So
you were not happy with how everything was going, clearly.
yes, that I just wasn't happy with it. There was, there's a lot of it that played into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was doing my best to live a good Amish life, but I came to the realization that for certain aspects of it or whatever, they have made tradition a religion, because everything was based off of tradition.
Right.
I would read in the Bible, I would read through things, and it's like, okay, so why do we do this? Or why don't we do this?
Yeah.
And when I would ask, it's just like, well, our forefathers must have seen something that we didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's working, and I was just supposed to be happy with that. So eventually I just left, I guess.
What type of Amish group was this? Were they just really strict, like old order?
Yes, old order. Not as strict as from what you grew up in.
Okay.
But nothing like, the more progressive community.
Right.
So.
Now, did you get baptized before you left?
I did.
You did?
I did, yes. I did. It was a wonderful day.
Okay.
But it seemed like, I really took that serious when I got baptized. And it seemed like it was from that day on is when I started seeing things. So,
okay.
It seemed like my eyes were open, I guess.
Yeah. So you had a lot of questions and very little answers.
Yep.
Kind of like true. I was, and you didn't really want to. I don't know. You see if you agree with me here. I know we were kind of taught in our community is you just do what you're told. Honor your father and your mother. Just do as you're told. Not really to question that. Is that kind of the way you were?
Big time. Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. You were supposed to accept it, and if you didn't accept it, you just didn't accept that this is just how we do it, and you have to obey your father and your mother.
Right.
Then you were a problem. And it was the same thing with the church. If there was something that came up with, you were supposed to vote for, and anybody who didn't vote for it, instead of considering that, it was like, okay, we've got a problem here, and you're the problem. So that's when I got asked, after I left, well, you don't have to agree with these things. That's why we vote. Now, my dad, there's a whole nother story behind that, which I won't go into, but my dad had, he had gotten into trouble with the church a lot.
Okay.
And so, and it was because of things that he believed differently.
Okay.
So, when I got asked that, I was like, "Am I really hearing right?" I said, "Dad," I said, you know just as well as I do. If you vote no, or whatever, you become the problem. They come after you.
Yes.
They just try to get you to change that vote, or you to change your mind, or whatever. And if you don't, you're the problem.
Yeah.
Dad, when I said that, he didn't say anything. He knew.
He knew.
He knew.
Because they will pressure you to
Yes.
agree. Just agree and keep everything the way
Just to keep the peace.
Yes, to keep the peace.
Yep.
Wow. Now, your religion, whatever you want to call it, that you came from, was it a religion?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Some people say it's a cult,
Okay.
but yeah, it's a religion. Yeah.
Okay. And what exactly did they do? Use biblical teaching? What did they teach from?
It's mainly so the religions really took off during the civil rights movement.
Okay.
So most of their teachings are like white people are bad and here's why. That's really like every time I ever sat in the mosque and heard their teachings, most of it was that. It really was.
All right.
They never read out the Quran. They mainly take a Bible verse and they either say this verse proves that we're right or this verse proves that white people are bad. Like for example, there was these verse in the Revelation talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They're saying that the white horse is talking about white people.
The white horse is talking about white people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I remember when I was sitting in the mosque and the preacher, the imam, they call it the imam. He said that and I was like, they have the black horse and the red horse. Like, wouldn't you say the black horse is black people? Like, it's not consistent.
Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense.
So it didn't add up.
It didn't, no.
Gotcha. Wow, that is so interesting. So any religion can cherry pick and make it something.
Yep. Yep.
And
that's something that I have seen a big similarity between the way she grew up and the way I grew up. Like, it was so extremely different in a way, but yeah, it was so very similar.
Wow. So many similarities between them.
Yes, it's hard to explain, really.
Yeah.
But,
they put a lot of their faith in Minister Farrakhan. I asked them, like, okay, if the Bible is corrupt, like it's corrupted by the white man, then why do you guys always preach out of it? And they said, oh, we need Farrakhan. We need Farrakhan to tell us which verse is right and wrong.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. I mean, there's groups there's just so much religion.
Yeah.
There's religion all across the planet, you know? Wow. I'm just amazed by that. So, go a little bit into, how was your relationship with your mom and dad?
My mom was great.
Okay.
So it depends like how old I was. Because me and my siblings, we always just kept our mouths shut. So we didn't have any friends. We didn't know a lot of our family members. My mom is Japanese.
Okay.
My mom, me and my mom, we were born in Japan. So all her family is Japanese.
Wow.
And they're all in Japan. So she has a sister. At the time, she had a sister and a dad and a mom. That's it. And they're all in Japan. So she didn't have any friends in America. My dad wouldn't really allow her to have friends anyways. And I had another mom. I would call her my stepmom. And it was my dad, my other mom, and my biological mom. We all lived in the same house. And there was a total of 8 of us.
8, wow.
So 6 of them was my stepmom's children, and 2 of us, me and my younger brother, were my mom's children.
Oh, okay. Wow, it's like kind of like the large Amish family. We both come from large families here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, your family, were they all committed to that religion, that system, or?
No, it was mainly my parents.
Just your parents, okay.
Like, we just went along with it, but, me and my siblings, we would talk. We were very close.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't believe in that. We thought they were stupid.
Okay. So, let's talk about your escape, and then we'll go to your escape. What led you up, Levi, to How did you plan your escape, basically?
Well, so I was the main source of income
Mm-hmm.
for the family.
Okay.
I was the main source of income, and I hunted a lot.
Okay.
That was our main source of like meat too.
Mhm.
So I had decided I will wait until the end of October because that gives me a month left. Because I was seriously worried about the welfare of the family
Okay.
if I left. That really weighed heavily on me. So I had decided I'll wait until end of October. That gives me a month to go and get some deer. I had a really good hunting spot. So, but it just things were just going like it was heavy. It got to the point I was like, I mean, if you could talk to my siblings, they would know exactly what I'm talking about. I would come home from church. I would come home from in the evenings, whatever, and it was oppressive. Like there was this, it was weighing so heavily on me, of that I need to make a change,
Yeah.
and it grew stronger really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just felt that I have to get out of here. Like I
Right.
have to make a change, and I wasn't entirely sure. And I was still in that mindset a little bit of if I do leave the Amish, then I'm damned.
Yeah.
Um,
It's hard to shake that off. I
Yeah,
think most of us struggle with that.
but so I remember I blamed myself. So one of my buddies had actually left the Amish, and I also blamed myself for that. And one day I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to go see if I can get him to change his mind and come back. So I went to his little brother and I asked for his phone number. His little brother gave me his phone number. And so one evening I go out to the phone shack to call him, to try to convince him to come back. And I seriously don't know what happened. I went out to that phone shack and I called him up, and I don't know what happened between. I don't even remember it really. All I know is that when I left there, I have made plans to leave the Amish. I actually, probably a couple months ago now, I talked to him, and I asked him, hey, what was our conversation? Because I couldn't remember.
Wow.
And he did not know until a couple months ago. I told him that, hey, the real reason I went out there to call you was to try to get you to come back. He didn't know that. He didn't.
Oh, he did. Okay, so this is interesting. You went to try to call him to try to convince him to come back.
Yes.
But yet it worked the opposite effect.
Yep. Yep.
I love it.
And then he told me that I have to have my social security card. I have to have my birth certificate. And I told him, I don't have a social security card. I have a birth certificate, but I have no idea where it's at. My dad had this giant desk, and it was packed full of papers. I could have looked for like a month to find them. And so I remember, this was probably a week later or so. I was out, I was mowing the grass, and then I thought, you know what, I'll go call him again. I did. And then he said, hey, I messed up. I was supposed to pick up, which is another one of our cousins that just lived about a mile away. And I that was news. I was shocked. I was like, what? He was going through the instruction classes. And he said, I messed up. I was supposed to pick him up last night, and I overslept. And I was like, he asked me if I can get over to him to tell him that he can pick him up that night. So I thought about it, and I was like, there is no way. If I was to go over there, my family would be questioning me.
Oh, yeah.
If I got over there, they'd be questioning me. And it was like, and I have already joined church. So I thought about it. I was like, I can't do it. So I told him, I said, I can't do it unless, if I do that, my cover's going to get all blown. And so, anyways, I went back out there, was mowing the grass, and all of a sudden I was like, it just hit me. Like, I still remember how that felt. It hit me. I was like, he can pick me up tonight. So I went back out there and called him up. I said, hey, so could you pick me up tonight? And he was like, yeah, sure, but do you have your birth certificate? I was like, no, I don't. And then he said, I told him, well, I'll go look for it, but I'll call you, I'll call you later.
Uh-huh.
So I went back up there, and this was really heavy on me, and I went back up to my room, and I remember I started praying. I prayed and prayed, and it's like, if this is the right thing, God, I'm gonna trust you that you're gonna bring this birth certificate, that I can find it. However, because we lived in like a studio, so everybody was in there. I couldn't just go digging in the dust.
Yeah.
So I went back downstairs. I sat on this little couch, and this dad was sitting on the desk, by the desk there, and he just goes and pulls his envelope out of a cubby hole. Takes the contents out, and it was all of our kids' birth certificates.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like I just couldn't believe it. Did nothing with them, just put them back in, stuck them right back in that cubby hole.
Showed you exactly.
Yes.
Wow.
And then and then I had one more problem, and that was how am I gonna get it? So, and then it was like 5-10 minutes after that, he goes back out to the shop. There was a shop, like basically built onto it. He goes out there, and he had finished this little furniture piece or something, and he yells back in and said, hey, everybody come out here and look at this. Everybody went out. So I just went over there and got my birth certificate. And that was when I knew,
Yeah, that was all God.
Yes, that's when I knew.
Paving the way.
And then there was one more thing, and that was that I was working with my brother. I loved it.
Uh-huh.
We had grown really close, my brother and I. And I thought, I was like, if I could just see him one more time, before I leave, because it was hard for me to imagine that, the next time I see him, it's going to be different. It's just, so, yeah, a couple hours later, here he comes. Him brought his entire family. They just came over and were like, they want to come over here for dinner. So, I got to see them, and then they left. And that night, I went back out there, told my friend that, hey, I've got my stuff, and that night he came over there, and I guess I kind of snuck out there
And left,
so,
just like that.
yeah.
Wow.
And then the next day, he was trucking, and so the next day we were on our way to Oklahoma when the phone calls started coming in. So.
And then they were checking, like, where'd you go?
Yeah.
Wow, I just love these journeys. I've talked to so many former Amish. Their journeys are all different. Some of them have attempted, failed. I've even been out there after dark, and they wasn't there. And something happened where they could. But your journey, so blessed to hear how God made that way for you.
Yeah.
It was just so perfect.
And there was I remember walking out, and I remember looking up at the stars. It was a clear night. I remember looking up at the stars, and there was this huge. Remember when I talked about that oppressive feeling I was talking about earlier? It had lifted. It lifted.
The oppression just lifted. You felt freedom.
I knew, yes, at that moment, I knew that I'm taking a step in the direction that I'm meant to.
Wow.
But there was a lot of sadness that,
Yeah.
I knew because I was really close to my family.
Yeah.
I really loved them. And so that was, it was kind of sad for that. But, after I left and when I went through some of those really tough times, I always just remembered that. I kept thinking about that, and that kept me strong.
What really proved to me that you loved your family is when you mentioned that you were kind of the sole income, to provide for them, to go hunting, and you didn't want to leave to see them struggling.
No, in fact, I actually, when I went back, so one Sunday when we knew everybody was going to be at church, we went back to get most of my belongings.
Okay.
And I took all the cash that I had on me. I took all of it, went back, and I just stuck it around in the desk so that they wouldn't, so that they could find it, and because I knew they were struggling.
You wanted to provide for them even though you're
Yeah.
out of. Wow, that says a lot about where your heart was.
Yeah. It was. I don't know. It was some tough times, but going through all that, every time, like now, every time I go through tough stuff, I look at, I think back to that, and I'm like, God led me through that.
Oh, absolutely.
I felt so close to God during those times. Like it was amazing.
He was bringing you out of Egypt
Yeah.
to the land, the promised land, and that's why you felt that oppression leaving, because it was in God's will and God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which Amish community was this? Where was that located at?
That was down in Vienna. I guess if you see it on the map, you would think it's Vienna, but all the locals call it Vienna. Illinois.
Illinois. Okay.
Yes, so it's far south. It's most people don't know an Amish community exists down there.
Okay.
But it's like 25 miles from Kentucky.
Okay.
30 miles from Missouri.
Oh, way down a
it
little corner.
is way down there.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm.
So that's
Oh,
that's
really?
where I left, moved to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your journey
Yeah.
on escaping this, what you kind of mentioned as a cult, what led up to you realizing you wanted to eliminate yourself and live something different, and then how did that play out for you?
You mean when I was 12, 13?
Whatever age, like what you can
Like
go
when
back
I-
as far as you
when I
want.
left my parents' house. Like which part? Because I became a Christian at 13.
Okay, let's talk
So-
about that.
Okay. So I watch a lot of conspiracy theories videos when I was like 13, 12 years old. And on my recommendation on YouTube popped up one of these Bible track videos.
Okay.
And I was watching it because I saw that they were very interesting. You know what those Bible track videos are, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I saw that it was like a video of it, and I was watching all of them, and then one popped up was like Islam, and I was like, what is this? I was like, I want to see this. I was interested, and I watched it, and it's like my whole world. I was like, what the heck? I was like, wow, I didn't know that Islam was a false religion. And then when I clicked on that, also recommended me David Wood.
Oh.
So then I started watching his videos, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
it was crazy. I remember the next day, I woke up and I was telling all my siblings, did you guys know Islam was a false religion? They were looking at me like, okay.
Have you lost your mind?
Yeah. No, they wasn't like, they already didn't care.
Okay, so they wouldn't really like committed themselves.
None of us were.
Okay. Okay.
But to me, it was like an answer to like why I thought this way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you were hearing some truth, and you're like,
It was
"Wait a
like,
minute."
yeah, I was hearing answers to my questions.
Yeah. Wow.
I was hearing another opinion because all I heard growing up was my dad's opinion. I never heard another opinion. So
Yeah.
now I heard another opinion, and it makes sense to me. My dad's opinion didn't make any sense to me, so I
Right.
just,
Well, isn't you guys hear all that? I mean, I just think of my, back. John chapter 8, verse 31 and 32 says, "If you know the truth shall set you free."
Yeah.
Anything else that ain't truth, it's bondage, oppression. It can be your own parents. If they were not taught right, the truth is still the truth. You
Yeah.
can't make the truth untruth.
That's true. I even had that conversation with one of my aunts one time. We were talking about some of this, and it's like once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. It's
Yes.
just
Amen.
you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And I had when I left, I had written a note that I will be back
Oh.
because I thought. Now I fully believed that God was leading me out of this,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that it's that the Amish are not still just the right people because of the way we were taught.
Yeah, you're programmed that way.
Yes, and so I just the only thing that made sense to me in my head was that God's leading me out to teach me something, and then He's going to lead me right back in.
Oh.
So that was, I kind of regretted the note, but at the same time, to me now it stands as a symbol of how, I don't know how you want to describe it, how deceived I was, I guess. And you know, looking at that, I can mirror it to like the rest of my family that's still in that,
Right.
and it keeps me from judging them. You know,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. But you're in your mindset. You wrote that because you thought you were going to return.
Yeah, because there was no way that it would be right to stay. You know,
Right. Right. In the world,
yeah, in
so
the
to speak.
world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, for your truth, did you then, after seeing some of those videos, did you feel like you needed to get out of that, or what was your mindset at that time?
Well, what do you mean by get out of it?
Like, did you have a desire to leave that way of life?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, the way that I grew up, for example, I wasn't allowed to wear anything that fits me. So all my clothes were baggy. So I'm an extra small. So the smallest size I could wear was a medium.
Okay.
So, and I'm a size 2 and, no, what's my pants size? I'm a size 3 in pants. I would have to wear a size 7 and like put a belt on.
Okay.
And it wasn't just me, it was my siblings too.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that.
That's what they taught?
That's what they wanted us to dress like.
Okay.
But was that was
really actually
NOI, and that was just your dad, right?
Yeah, it was mainly
Yeah.
my dad. The NOI wanted you to dress modestly, but they would still let you wear clothes that fit you.
Okay.
You know, but my parents were like, "Oh no, you're not gonna wear clothes that fits
Yeah.
you because that's too revealing."
By the way, the NOI stands for the Nation of Islam. That's the group that she
The Nation of Islam
Yes.
is the group
Yep.
that she grew up
that you
with.
identify. Okay. So did you guys wear any kind of the Muslim gear with the face covering everything?
I did. We
you?
did. Dang.
That dog scared me. Okay, so you had to wear the Muslim type of that the women would wear.
Yeah, but it wasn't often because it was expensive to them
gotcha.
because
Okay.
there's like 6 girls.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So what we did was we wore hats like that.
Okay.
But the thing is, my siblings' hair is different from my hair.
Mm-hmm.
Their hair is more bigger curls and more wavy.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I hated wearing hats. I really did.
You hate it, yeah, because it's gonna be uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, would you like to go into your escape? How you got out of that?
How I got to my parents' house?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was working at Panera Bread at the time. And when I was growing up, my parents always told me to tell people I'm homeschooled, but I wasn't
Okay.
homeschooled. I didn't go to school. I wasn't homeschooled. We just was on YouTube every day, all day.
That was your schooling?
My dad said we don't need to go to school because we have our moms to teach us how to be wives.
Oh.
We didn't need to go to the white man's school.
Wow.
And his reasoning for that was because that if we go to school, there's a chance we could get R-worded, and we wouldn't be, can I say virgin?
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay, we wouldn't be virgins anymore,
Okay.
so we wouldn't be worth as much. That's what he told us.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it gets dark.
So,
Wow. Hmm.
that's why he didn't want us to go to school and have friends and all that.
So it was portrayed as this is for your own protection.
Yep.
To protect you, this is why we do this and this. You don't go to the white man's school. You come to this. In our home, we teach you as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And my dad said we didn't need to learn what the white man teaches us. We only need to learn the ways of being a wife. That's it.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's better if you ask me the questions, then I can remember a lot of the stuff.
Yeah,
than me
yeah.
just.
Right. So, teaching that, was there an age then that he would say you are ready to be a wife? Do they teach that?
My dad never specifically said that, but I will say one time, me and my sisters, we were talking about what age we wouldn't date. Like, oh, that's too old for me. Like, if I was this age, that would be too old for me. My dad overheard us, and then he came out. He said to me, because I said I wouldn't date this age.
Mm-hmm.
My dad said, "Oh, you need somebody that age so he can handle you."
Oh.
So he said, "You need someone who's 40 years old so he can handle you." Because I was the rebel daughter.
Oh, gotcha. So, would you say the male was portrayed as the dominant one and the woman more submissive?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what a lot of religions do. That's why I'm going down that route because
Yeah.
I have talked to so many former this and former that and former Jehovah's Witness, former Amish, Mennonite, Hutterite. I mean, you go down the list.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them has something in common, and that is where the women are the submissive ones to the husband, and they will cherry pick whatever they have to justify that.
Yeah.
And I know nothing more ungodly than that. Let's just say it that way. I have a righteous anger that I feel when we talk about those things because I'm disgusted how far away from actual truth these religious groups have become where they control women in such a way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you going down that route to kind of get an understanding how they view women in that culture.
But I think it was a lot of it. Remember, my dad is like very off. Like he's an extremist. Most of the Muslims in the mosque that we went to in the NOI, they didn't act like him.
Okay.
So it was really just him.
So he was really an extreme.
Yeah, he was out there. Like he.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, what age did you leave?
Oh, when I left, I was 17.
17.
So what happened was, I was working at Panera. I had a friend at the time, and her parents are very strict on school.
Okay.
And she kept asking me, like, because I told her I was homeschooled. She asked me, oh, how was that? Like, what program do you use? She was asking me all these questions I didn't have the answer to because we weren't homeschooled.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I told her, like, yeah, I'm not actually homeschooled. She was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, we don't do anything. The most I tried my best to educate myself. I try my best to educate myself, but I can only do so much because everything is demo or free version, free trial. You can only do so much.
Right.
And she was like, how is that even legal? Like, how did your dad get... She's asking me all these questions. I'm like, I don't know.
It really wasn't legal.
Yeah, she's like, how is that even legal? Like, how did your dad get away with that for so long? And I was like, the only thing I can think of is, like, there were times where people would call CPS on my dad when we were younger. And the only thing I can think of is he would tell the worker... the social worker, like, oh, we're Muslims. We're homeschooling them. And they would never make it prove
they just don't question any further.
Yeah, they really didn't ever. And then I'm on the phone with her. This is all happening through the phone.
Mm-hmm.
She said, that's illegal. How are you going to go to college? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And I was like, man, I really don't know. She was like, you're going to be stuck working dead-end jobs for the rest of your life. You will never be able to make money to save up, buy a house. Like, how are you going to do all this?
Yeah.
Without a GED or high school diploma. And I was like, I don't know. So she was like, I'm going to tell my dad. And she gave the phone to her dad, and her dad told me, like, you should call CPS. And it was like that night I called CPS with my dad.
That night?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then a few days later, the social worker came, and my dad spazzed out on that social worker. He was calling him a little boy, like, you know how you... Yeah, degrading him. You know how you see those Karen videos?
Yeah.
It was like that. My dad was like spazzed out. The social worker ended up calling the cops on my dad. So the cops showed up and they wanted to interview us, and I told the guy, like, my dad's always like this, all that stuff, and nothing really happened. And that's when it went like downhill, because now my dad knows I'm calling the cops on him, and I'm calling CPS on him and all that.
Yeah. So he treated you probably different after that incident?
They always treated me different when I was growing up, because ever since I was younger, I would tell people things I didn't know I either didn't know I wasn't supposed to tell them, or I didn't. How would I describe it? I didn't know I could tell them, and there was another one. I think I would just tell them and just hope it didn't go back to my dad.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Like, one of the things I would get in trouble for, like, one time I told this girl that, my dad always brings home these women. So my dad would bring home prostitutes, and they would just be with us for like a week. They would just live in our house for like a week.
What?
And, and then I saw these women. I didn't mind it because they talked to me, they listened to me. None of them were ever mean to me, none of them.
Okay.
So I was fine with it. My dad
Right.
told me that he was helping them.
Wow.
But really, he was just sleeping with them and just say, hey, you can eat our food. Because these are women who were off the streets. They didn't have anything
Right.
else.
What state was this?
Georgia.
Georgia. Wow. Well, this stuff is around, among us. We don't even know.
I know.
Isn't that wild?
I know. It's crazy. Like, we drive so much, and we travel across the country like every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes when I'm driving through cities or wherever, and I'm just, I look around, I'm just like, what's going on around here?
Yeah.
What are you having in
You
that
have no idea,
home or
really.
that city or that?
Yes.
There's oppression everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, what ultimately happened that you called earlier before we went live? Would you like to share what resulted in you then calling the cops and you left home?
Okay, my dad started treating me really, really bad. You know how you see those high school bullies? And you know how you see, like, you ever think of your worst manager? Like, my dad really treated me, because he knew he couldn't beat me, because I'll call the cops.
Right.
So what he would do, for example, I went no contact with my dad. I stopped talking to him. I was like,
Okay.
if he's gonna rage out, like, he will fly into a rage
Mm-hmm.
about white people, about how terrible I am, and I'm just supposed to sit there and listen to all that. And he will go on for hours. One time he did it for 4 hours, and I recorded it, and I don't have it anymore. But he would really go on for hours and he'd be crying, he'd be punching the wall, he'd be throwing things, and then he wants me to sit there and watch him do all that.
I had listened to
Wow.
her recording, and it almost didn't sound human.
You serious?
I'm serious.
It was kind of demonic.
Yes.
Like, he's not... It's more... I don't know how to describe it. It's really like when he... It's like, I don't know, anguish. Like somebody died. Like, do you know that scream? Like, that's how he screams. He throws things,
Right.
all that stuff. And I was like... I saw this video of what narcissists are. And I was like, the way this guy was saying the signs of them and the traits, I was like, oh my gosh, my dad is a narcissist. And then I was like... The guy said in the video, like, narcissists crave attention. They want validation. They want, attention and validation. Yeah. And I just said, I'm not going to give him that. I'm not going to sit here and watch him do all that.
That right there is why he screamed the way he did and went off. Because when a narcissist can't control you and get what he wants, they throw a fit. That's why you saw that behavior.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And he'd been doing that since I was young, because in my dad's head, when I would do little things like tell a stranger, my dad has women over the house. To me, as when I was young, I just thought like, oh, this is okay. My dad never told me not to tell people. He told me to tell people in a way that he was helping these women.
Right. Now he's caring and wanting to help.
Yeah, but he wasn't helping them.
Yeah.
And what was I going with this?
Like how you then left, how you left the house.
Mm-hmm. What was I going, like, from that? What was I going? I'm sorry. It's better if you ask me questions than I can.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was, maybe you could share how you had to hide your money in the woods.
Oh, yeah, man. So, my dad didn't work. There's so much to this. You have to ask me the questions for me to remember it. My dad didn't have a job. It was me and my sisters and my stepmom were the only ones who worked.
Mm.
My dad said he wasn't going to work for the white man. He doesn't want the white man watching him. That was his reason. And he would ask us for a couple $100 every month. Because it was... The way he said it was our turn to give back to our parents. We need to take care of our parents. So we owe him our money.
Oh, wow.
So he would take hundreds of dollars from our paycheck, and he would spend it on women.
Yeah. What he wanted to spend it on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is wild.
And from that, I had a joint account under my mom because I was a minor. I couldn't have my own account. So every time I get it paid, my mom would see it. Now, my mom is not like anything like my dad. My mom was generally happy to see me work hard and get paid a lot. So I was working a lot of overtime because I believed that the more money I make, my dad would take this some of it, I would still have a lot of money left. So I just worked as much as I literally could. And my mom was proud of me. She was like, oh, I'm so happy you're working, my hardworking daughter, all that. And then she would tell my dad. But she's not telling my dad in intention that she wants him to take it from me. My dad would hear $1,000 and he would be like, oh, I could take $300. And then she has $600 for herself. And he would use that $300 on what,
Yeah, for what he wanted. Wow.
So I decided to withdraw all my money off the bank and I just have it all in cash. So she's not constantly, every time she logs into her account, she sees how much I have. So I'll just pull everything and then I just hid it in the woods.
Yeah. Wow. I can see why you'd eventually get to the point where he said, I gotta get out of this.
So what my dad wanted to do, I knew that I needed to have an education in order to get a job. But I just got lucky because it was COVID time when I had that job.
Oh.
Everybody needed workers,
Yeah.
and in my head, I thought like I'm competing against somebody with a high school education.
Right.
I don't have anything, and
No
in the
education.
city, if you are someone that's a teenager and you don't have a GED diploma, they're gonna see you as a delinquent. I don't know in the countryside it's different, but if you are in the city, they're gonna see you as that. And I knew that, and I was like, you know what? My dad wants me to stay here and marry me off. And I was like, I gotta do everything in my power to get out of here. My plan was to, when I turned 18, I was gonna join the military and get out.
Oh.
That was my plan. I was like watching videos on working out because I was watching videos on the military and how to join the military and how it is. I was really trying everything I could. Like running laps around the yard, doing all this stuff because I was leaving.
Well, at least you had a path that you wanted to use to get out of that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted. You wanted something to escape. So now, just a little bit, because it's so rare what I've heard you say so far about the white man, mostly in the BLM stuff, and when we talk about racist, it's always usually portrayed as the white people being racist towards the blacks. So what you've portrayed so far in your testimony is that your dad was very much against the white man. Okay. I just want to make sure I understand that, because it can be vice versa.
Yeah.
We just never really view it that way.
Yeah. It was mainly white people. My dad was against everybody, really, but it was mainly white people. Like
Gotcha.
he would say every day I'm hanging out with N-words with a hard R. And my dad thought he was better than those
Right.
black people who live in the ghetto, but he would always hang out with them, but he thought,
gotcha.
That's what he was saying.
Okay. Now, what year did you leave out of that?
I don't remember. I just know I was 17. August 5th. I know it was August 5th. I'm 20 now, so that's 2020.
Oh, that's only been a couple years.
Yeah.
Wow.
2022?
3 years?
2021?
3 years ago?
Yeah, it was 3 years ago.
This is very recent. Wow.
It was August 5th.
August 5th. And you were 17?
Yeah, and I turned 18 in November 5th.
Okay.
Okay.
How'd you do that? How'd you get enough build up to where you were enough confidence?
My dad got tired of me calling the cops.
Okay.
He got tired of me calling CPS, calling the cops on him, so he told me to leave.
Oh, okay.
And my dad told me to leave another time a couple months before that. And he called the cops. He called the cops and raced over to my uncle's house where I was at the time. And he told the cops, oh, they're kidnapping my daughter. My dad told me to leave that first time, and I left. And then he called the cops and went over there saying that I was kidnapped.
Oh, wow.
So I thought when I left, I thought my dad is just gonna come get me again in a week.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought that, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
When he told me to leave, I guess he really meant that.
Right. Wow. So that was your escape route.
Yeah, I was like, he might come back, but at least I'll have some peaceful week.
Yeah. Were you not taught salvation through Jesus Christ at that time?
I watch videos.
You
yeah.
watch, so just through videos and
yeah,
stuff
I
like
never
that.
went to
Okay.
church or anything. I just watched YouTube
Gotcha,
videos.
gotcha. Okay. Now back to your testimony on where you kind of left off. You left. You left the note. I'm coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know salvation yet?
No, I understood the concept of it.
Okay.
I mean, there was a while after I left, there was a while where it was just, I was trying to process all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I felt when I left, it didn't take me very long at all to realize that the picture that had been painted to me when I was growing up, that it was almost totally false of the outside world. So when I was, then it was the whole process of trying to figure out, okay, so what is right, what is wrong, what is okay, what is not okay, and you go to church and you hear them and it makes sense, but then you still remember that they did preach about what in the Amish they always said was so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough for a couple of years, but
Right.
there was a men's retreat that I went to one time.
Okay.
And I just remember, so when I left, I was told that do not come back, don't come back to visit or anything, unless there's a death in the family.
Okay.
So that was kind of just hard for me to think about that or whatever, because
Right.
like, okay, who am I not going to see anymore?
Yeah.
But so during that time, it wasn't too long after that. I had that constantly on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I was burdened down a little bit, and there was this men's retreat. I went there, and I remember, like, we were there, and they called. It was like an altar call, and I'm standing there. My buddies were on both sides, and they're like, "You gonna go up?" And I was like, "No, I don't need to." and before I knew what was happening, I don't know how it worked. Before I knew what I was doing, I was walking up there.
Oh wow.
And yeah, the first thing that happened, he was like, "Okay, so what can I pray for you?" And I said, "I need to forgive my dad." I had never known that I need to forgive my dad up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember when I said that, they prayed for me. When I walked back, it felt like, I don't know, I felt weightless. I think I know how the astronauts feel now.
Wait,
Like, yeah, like it felt like I was almost floating.
Yeah.
And so there was, what I really remember too was there was another guy there. They started praying for him, and he collapsed. He started sleeping right there. I mean, like within minutes.
Wow.
And while we were all up there, we were praying for him. I felt this breeze, this cool breeze. It was a hot day in August or something. It was midsummer, and I felt this cool breeze come through about knee height, came through. And I looked around because I thought somebody left the door open or something, or the window, but there was nothing open.
Wow.
And then later, I heard somebody else, because when I looked around, I saw there was like 2 or 3 other guys that did the same. And we got together later, we're like, "Hey, yeah, did you feel that?" But that's really when things started kind of, clicking, and
Yeah.
I started realizing really what salvation means.
Yeah. You realized the Holy Spirit was arriving, wasn't just a door standing open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's amazing.
that was the very first, and I had heard my dad talk about gatherings like that,
Mm-hmm.
and he always said that is demonic. That is it doesn't work like that and all that. So I was very wary of that.
Yeah.
But when I experienced what I experienced, it was just, it all went out the door. I knew.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of those experiences that I had, I feel like I'm a thick-headed Yoder, and some of those experiences that I had to be a little bit extreme to get through to me,
Mine had to as well. Us Yoders have a thick skull. Well, most former Amish, it's the ones I minister to that are the hardest is the former Amish because of how we were indoctrinated. Mm-hmm. It's easy to view what God is doing as demonic. Mm-hmm. It's hard to accept what those worldly people are doing when we were born and raised. Yes, yeah. When we don't understand, then it's easy to blame God and say, "Well, that's demonic. Mm-hmm. That can't be from God." Those English people they say they got delivered, they're saved. Mm-hmm. Well, we were taught the opposite. Well, they're living how they want.
Anybody says that, it's sure proof that this is demonic. That's how I got taught.
Yeah.
Anything, deliverance, anything in that way. If anything like that happens, that is the visual proof that it's demonic.
And that's how we were raised.
Yeah.
You can't just shake that off.
We would read it in the Bible, but it was, when you'd read it or whatever, it's like, yeah, this happened, that happened, it can still happen. But whenever you would hear about it, in real life, it's like they didn't believe that it still exists.
Yeah. I tell you, there's nothing the enemy loves more than that is keep people in bondage. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now you come out of the Amish, you come out of your mess, whatever you want to call it. How in the world does God bring a former Amish and a former Muslim nation, or whatever you call it?
Nation of Islam.
Nation of Islam together. Let's go into that. Like, how do you two even meet each other? How does this happen?
Well, I was living in Georgia at the time, a little bit south of where she lived, and I was there for different reasons, mm-hmm. but so I didn't know how long I needed to stay there, whatever. I guess so. I was going through flight school at the time, and I had my cousin. I was talking to my cousin once. I remember I was driving back up, and I was talking to my cousin, and he was talking about how he found his wife on this Christian dating app.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, but I was very judgmental. I was like, but anyways, it had kept popping up on my Instagram, and I had actually, it irritated me. It really irritated me. I had, how you can click the X on there, and
yeah,
so you don't see it again, but it kept popping up.
Just kept coming back.
Yeah. So, and I was driving up, and I understand I shouldn't have been doing that, but I looked through my phone a little bit while I was driving, and it was there. So, anyways, I made a fake account.
Okay.
To look at it, but flight school is very expensive.
Okay.
And also with what I had going on, with why I had moved down there, I had a very, very strong mindset of, that's all for later. No mm-hmm. dating until later. I want to get through all of this, and because, money was tight. It was very tight. And so I just kind of forgot about it, and that was several weeks later. We had, I all of a sudden remembered that, hey, I still have that, and I got my phone out to delete it. So in order to delete it, you go in there and you basically delete your account. So I went in there, and then I was looking at, I had gotten some likes, and okay, whatever, and then while I was on there, she sent me a like, and I was like, okay, well, so I liked her back, and then she sent me a message, and we messaged a little bit, and I was like, there's something different, but I just kept kind of pushing it back, but there's something different enough to where I don't know, it interested me. Well, eventually she wanted to call, and I almost just ghosted her because I was
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not looking for this because I've got too much going on.
Uh-huh.
But we called. Well, then she wanted a date.
Hey, it was just like instant, huh?
And then I was like, well, shoot, how am I going to get out of this now? I actually was talking to one of my friends, and I told him, yeah, I'm just going to ghost her. I can't, I'm not at the position to deal with it, to deal with any of this. And he was like, well, like, are you crazy? I was like, what's the red flags? And I started thinking and thinking and thinking. I couldn't come up.
You
with
couldn't come up
anything.
with no red flags.
So I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll go on a date. And we did, and then I decided, you know what, I'll keep on dating her as long as she lets me. So, yeah.
Isn't that amazing how God brings a Muslim nation, Amish nation, and mixes them together?
It was very interesting when we were on a date. I remember because I don't know if it was over the phone or while we were on the date. We were like, "Oh, you have a big family. Oh, I came from a big family. Oh, you live with your sisters at the time. Oh, I live with my sisters too."
Yeah, and I even had told her that I can't commit too much to driving or getting together too often because I have responsibilities here, with my sisters, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, she understands because she has the same thing." I was like, oh, "Okay." So I got 2 sisters, and she was like, "Yeah, me too." So
You can relate to one another.
Yeah, it was almost uncanny.
Yeah. Probably a lot of similarities with what she started sharing with you, what she came from and where you came from. You could probably connect because of that.
Yeah.
Instantly connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say that we grew up very, extremely different in ways, but very similar in other ways.
Yeah. Very different, but a lot of similarities
Yes.
at the same time.
Yes.
Gotcha. Wow. But I do have to ask you, Levi.
Yeah.
I have seen a ton of people leave the Amish. Majority of them stay in construction. Majority of them don't even get a GED. Majority of them just keep working so they don't have to worry about getting all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My brother left and became a police officer and now a sheriff.
Oh, wow.
You're like the only ex-Amish I've heard say, I left the Amish and I went to flight school. I'm going to be a pilot. What made you want to be a pilot?
Well, that's actually another crazy story. Something I always remembered was when I was a little bitty kid. Like, it's kind of crazy because I remember I was so small that I was looking up at my mom, and I told my mom that we were outside and there was this. You could see this big jet going across the sky, and I told her, I said, someday I'm going to be out there. And now I did not know that she remembered this until after I had left. I heard through the grapevine that she talked about that, when she found out that I'm flying, that she remembers that.
Wow.
But I was always very fascinated with just airplanes. My dad was too. He won't admit it, but he was. but and then we had this book. It was about how the stealth bomber was built.
Okay.
And this was a thick, soft cover, fine print book. And I read that thing from cover to cover, I don't know how many times.
When you were still Amish?
Yes, when I was still Amish.
Wow, so you were clearly fascinated at a young age about flying.
And so when I left, it was, I don't know, it was several months after I had left. All of a sudden, it registered to me that, I can have a career now of some kind.
Yeah.
So the first thing I thought was, I'm going to be a pilot. That was until I started going on Google and figuring out what I need to do to become a pilot. And I was like, yeah, I think I better find something different. And so I was looking at all different kinds of things, but something stuck out. Every career path, the minimum thing that you needed was a GED. I'm like, what the heck is this GED thing? I had never heard of it. And so a couple days later, I'm coming home. I was doing construction, and we were coming home, and there was this. We were driving past the courthouse, the Marion County Courthouse, or I don't know, is it Marion County, but it's in Marion, Kentucky, the courthouse. There was this sign, one of these yard signs stuck out there, and it said something about a GED, and it was a phone number. I was like, hey, that's that thing that I need. So we stopped, and I got that phone number, and yeah, well, my coworkers, it was almost every day. They were just bashing me like that they're like, how do you think,
can't do it?
yeah, how do you think, they would call me a dumb Amish kid. How do you think you can do this? It got to the point I thought, well, they're probably right. But anyways, I called the lady up, and she was like, yeah, you just come on down here, we'll talk, and I went there, and she was like, you know what, just take the books home, just, study them, and as you're ready for your test or whatever, let me know, and, be coordinated with all that. So, they also told me it's going to take me 5 years to get my GED. They said it's something like college. So,
I thought.
anyways, I have my GED in 5 weeks. So, yeah.
It's exactly what it took me.
Really?
5.5, almost. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it wasn't too good there. I hated it there.
Uh-huh.
I'm just gonna be honest. I hated it where I was. I wanted to get out of there, and I latched onto the GED as this is my way out.
Uh-huh.
So I would come home and study way into the night.
Yeah.
So I got my GED, and I had a job. I found this stranger. I don't recommend this, but I found this stranger on Facebook that offered me a job. So
Wow.
so I got my GED, and it was like 2 days later, I think, or a day later, I forget. I went to Nashville, hopped on this airplane. That's for the first time. I had no idea what I was doing. My boss didn't know. Nobody knew. So I just went in there, asked questions. Somehow got on the right airplane. Took my first flight ever up to Minneapolis. Met the stranger and worked for him.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's how you just...
So
if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
You know what you wanted.
It was... But they always told me, yeah, you get on that first airplane ride, you're going to change your mind. Well, you know what? When I took that first airplane ride, it was solid. I want to do this.
You knew you wanted to do that.
Yeah, but I will say, though, I myself didn't really believe that I could do it. That's just way too far out there. There's just no way I could do that. And... well, then with the flight school I'm at now, my one of the owners, the chief flight instructor, he through one of his instructors, I think it was, found out a little bit, that I left, whatever, and I'm not entirely sure if he knew anything about me wanting to fly or not. I don't know, but anyways, he wanted to talk to me. He wanted to hear my story and whatever. And, so okay, so I was one time when I was in the area, I let him know, hey, I'm in the area, and so he gave me an address to come out to, and so I get there, and it's the airport. So we're sitting in there, and we talked and everything, and then at the end of it all, he was like, so what are your plans now? Now that you're out, what do you plan? Going forward, what are you looking for, or whatever. And I hesitated a little bit. I was, up to that point, whenever I would mention that, I'd get a lot of negativity,
Yeah.
This guy is telling me I can't do it and everything. And hesitated a little bit. Finally, I was like, well, I said, this right here, to fly, this has always been my dream. But I told him I realized that that's really not, it's not. It probably won't happen because of where I come from.
Right.
He was like, absolutely, you can do this. So
finally somebody to encourage you.
Yeah.
Because if enough people say you can't, you start believing it.
Yes, that's at the point where I was.
Yeah.
So I went back, I was living in Minnesota at the time, so I went back up there, and a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't remember. I was driving down to live in Indiana, and I started flying. But So when I had gone, and I actually didn't even put the time frame together until a couple months ago. But the job that I had taken in Minnesota, it was doing window warranty. So I traveled all over the country. I just lived in hotels. I didn't even have an address, so I was homeless, I guess.
Wow.
I just lived in the hotels. All of my belongings were in this little suitcase, and just doing, the warranty for Marvin windows all over the country.
Okay.
And so because of that, I was delayed in getting my driver's license. Well, I got my driver's license, and it was a couple weeks, maybe a month or so later. It's when I moved down and started flying airplanes. So I kind of went from horse buggy to
Horse and buggy to airplane.
It was I didn't realize it was in such a span like
Yeah.
that until after.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The first time I asked you about, interviewing you, and you said, "Well, I'll just fly to Lyman. You can pick me up," and I'm like, "Do what? Fly? An ex-Amish has the ability to fly an airplane?"
Yeah, I would have loved to fly out here today, but the
Yeah.
airplane was up for maintenance, and they don't.
Gotcha.
Where I rent from, they don't want they don't want me to use the airplanes that the students
Right.
want to.
Well, one thing I've learned is
rent.
don't never tell a Yoder no, he can't do it, because he'll prove you that he can do it.
He'll prove you wrong.
Many people told me I couldn't drive truck. I'm doing it. I was going to prove them wrong. Many people told my brother, "You can't be a cop. You're coming from the Amish. You got to get a GED and all." He did it all. He's
He
a
did
cop.
it all.
You the same way. Many people told you can't do it. Guess what? You know how to
Hey,
fly an airplane.
I'm telling you, it's that hard head of us. We just.
Don't never tell a Yoder no. I love it. Alrighty, so man, this has been an amazing interview. I love this. I mean, just because of the culture difference, it's amazing how you guys get connected. You were getting ready to
Yeah.
delete the app, and then there you see her liking your stuff, and you start.
That was
That's crazy. I mean, because our biggest culture difference, because he was really close to his family.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't.
You wasn't that close.
When I moved from Atlanta to Indiana, I was like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I just left because he
Yeah.
moved up here for flight school, and I was in Atlanta, and I was like, well, I'm gonna get married one day, and if this is gonna work out, I want to marry you. I'm gonna move up there. Everybody was like, oh, this is around. I don't know how to describe it, but
You had wanted to get out of the area.
yeah, I did,
Yeah.
yeah. But it was like ghetto black people.
Right.
Like, I don't know how to describe it. They were like, why are you chasing after a white boy? Or why are you chasing after, oh my goodness, the things that they would say is crazy.
Told her she better get her concealed carry because.
Yeah, they told me
all the
that,
racists up there.
because there's a lot of racist white people I should carry, that I shouldn't
Oh.
do it because white people are up there, they're gonna treat me any kind of way. They were just telling me a lot of stuff, and I knew that can't be true. Y'all crazy.
Yeah.
Y'all know me.
Also, couldn't tell you no.
But it's talking about our story or whatever. Sometimes you get caught up in life and
Yeah.
everything, and you kind of put that back. But whenever we talk about all of this, it's like, wow, there's no way that this was just coincidence. I can't
Right.
help it. It's too many coincidences for it to be a coincidence.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so whenever we talk about it, whatever, it just brings it back of really everything God did for us.
Yeah. His
Everything-
timing is so perfect.
Yeah.
Everything how your life played out. Everything. It doesn't matter how bad it started, but how you finish.
Yeah.
And never let the past destroy your future. That's what I say a lot. So to wrap this interview up, we have got to talk a little bit about forgiveness. I had recently had some because forgiveness was for me to go out and talk with my mom. God made that. That's also God's timing.
I did see that. That's awesome.
So you shared with what you went through. You shared with what you went through, with your dads and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have my father's love and father's blessing. I also did not feel accepted, and that's ultimately why I left the Amish.
Mm-hmm.
So forgiveness, for everything you've been through, do you think you've forgiven your dad?
I think I've forgiven him on the most part. It's very hard because you start thinking back, like, dang, I could have done this, or I could have left earlier if I told the police a lot earlier, or like, why is Yeah, for the most part, I have.
Okay. Because you can do that without having to go even have a conversation with them. You can move on and love them from a distance and forgive them. Because forgiveness is for you, not for the other party.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Now, what about you, as far as everything you've been through? And I know there's a lot of painful things you didn't go into with your dad and all of that, but how were you able? Have you been?
I
able
have
to?
forgiven
Okay.
him. Yes. Like you said, there's some things I'm not going to talk about, but so I had forgiven him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went like I had talked about earlier. I had forgiven him there, and things were better. Now I knew some of those things that had happened and all that. Like it was bad. But I had forgiven him, and I chose to just think that, you know what, it's okay. He for all I know, he's still doing everything that he knows to do. I chose to just hang on to that. Well, later there's some things that happened or whatever, and I realized that there's a whole lot more, and so that had put me on a spiral.
Okay.
I had to forgive him again, and it wasn't until about a month ago or so, when I all of a sudden realized that I was living, how do you say, I felt clenched up all the time, and I realized that it was because of these things,
Yeah.
and I realized that when you don't forgive someone, it's not them that are suffering, it's you.
Right.
It was me that was suffering, and it just, it affected my studying, it affected, a lot of that stuff.
Right.
So, and ultimately, God asks us to forgive everybody,
Yes.
So, I've forgiven him, and like, I do not condone the things that he did, the things that he does. I don't condone that at all, but I do realize that you can still forgive.
Yeah, I
You
know
can
with
still
my.
forgive.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, that I'm fine.
I know with my dad, people who are narcissistic,
Mm-hmm.
even though none of his siblings are like that, I don't know what he personally went through. I really
Right.
don't. Because when I did research on, narcissistic people, how they turn out like that, it's like
Right.
they've been neglected, they've been
Yes.
abused, and them having this alter ego, this
Mm-hmm.
fake facade, that they're this, I don't know the word for it, that they're just better than everybody, they're superior to everybody,
Right.
is to cope
Yeah.
for what they're going through.
Yeah.
Now, my dad, the way he described his childhood was very vague. He never went into it, ever.
Okay.
But his brother told me things that all he really ever told me is that he one time tried to set the room on fire.
Mm.
So when his brother, I guess he was at 12 at the time, my dad was probably 15, preteen, maybe, I don't know. But he tried to set the room on fire while he was in it.
Wow.
He tried to light the curtains up.
Yeah.
Like
I can guarantee
he was
went through
very.
things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I guarantee he went through things, hurt people, hurt other people.
Yeah.
That kind of behavior, like you described with your dad, was his way of protecting himself.
Like,
That's how people become narcissistic sometimes, is they put this guard up, so to speak, to protect themselves because of what they went through.
Yeah.
So if
I
we
believe that.
knew every detail about what your dad's been through, we could understand better why he was behaving the way he was.
Yeah, I do see that, and I know his grandpa died from liver cancer or something because he was an extreme alcoholic. He died at like 50
Wow.
from that, and his mom, my grandma, was the same way too, but she wasn't as an alcoholic as he was.
Okay.
But when I did meet her and the couple of times I did see her, she was always mean. She always just had this, I don't care about you, give me my cigarette. Like, that's kind of like the vibe that, everybody got from her.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, that's just her as old. I can't imagine if she was like in her 40s where she had more energy to actually put her hands on people. I really don't know how he grew up.
Right.
I can kind of imagine it, but I really, he never really told me.
Mm-hmm. interesting to get all those details.
Yeah, right.
You know, when I left the Amish, I eventually ran down my grandma, my dad's mom. That's when I got all the answers. But if I'd have never ran her down, I would have. I'm not so sure I'd still understand my dad.
Mm-hmm.
But because there's generational things.
Oh yes, yep.
There's generational things that go way, way 5, 6, 7 generations back that we have no control over. We don't know how to deal with it because it's been going on for so long. And all it takes is one person in that family to stop it.
Yeah,
Cut it
and there
off.
was there for our family there was a big thing of anger issues, and I still remember. I don't think I will ever forget this. I I was going down that path. I mean, I was running down that path, and to the point where this was when I was still Amish. To the point where my siblings they would get scared of me, and that would hurt me. But I still didn't change. But the one day, one of my sisters, we had an altercation again, and she was like, you're getting to be just like your dad. Dude, let me tell you. It was, if you would have slapped me straight across my face.
Would have been better than that
yeah,
word.
Yes.
Hit right here.
And I remember everything just drained out of me. And I turned to my twin, after she had gone. I just stood there for a while, just thinking and thinking and thinking. I turned to my twin. I was like, is it true? Am I really getting to be like him? And she just looked at me and nodded her head. That's when it just switched up, dude. I had a fight, but I'm telling you, like, that's when I started realizing this. And it was not long after that we had this book. We had an extensive library at home, and we had this book, and it said something about it. The American Indians had the saying of, "What your decisions are now will affect you in 4 generations." And I thought about that. I thought. I've always been a thinker, and I was like, I started seeing this pattern, from back. And so I went to my mom, and I started asking her questions about my grandpa, and it followed that pattern.
Wow.
So I had no idea about anything about generational or whatever, but when that happened about me, and I realized that, oh my gosh, I'm becoming the very person I don't want to become.
Yeah.
And I needed to change this. And then I was reading that book, and I came across that. I found that so fascinating. And then I traced it back, and I was like, maybe they knew something, which now I know. But then when it was just now knowing what I know, the way my dad acted, I'm pretty sure it's because of the way he grew up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's sad. It's, I wish he could understand that and see that, but at least I have the opportunity to change that.
Yeah, we all have that opportunity to do what is right.
Yeah.
I just recently talked to my mom, and I explained what we're talking about right now, and she just started bawling. And I knew she didn't have to say nothing.
Yeah.
I knew by talking about the subject that I have brothers that are doing the exact same thing as Dad did. Just the rage, the anger, just the throwing and breaking things because for whatever reason, if something went wrong, for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And just by bringing it up and talking about it, and my mom, you could see the pain.
Yeah.
And I know I have brothers in the Amish community doing that. I know I have. Just by that.
That's what's really hard, like, for me is, my brothers, like, we all, it was bad enough, with my dad or whatever. I feel like we just went extremely the other way. Out of all of them, I was going down the path. I don't remember ever, maybe my other brothers went through a phase. I don't know. I was quite a bit younger. My brother oldest, next older to me was 16 years older than me. So, but they were both so calm, just so quiet, calm, and just very like I know their marriage is great, now, like, it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like a part of that is simply because of we had this huge fear of becoming like our dad.
Right.
And well, I was running down that path, but
You just said twin earlier. You a twin?
yes,
Really?
yeah, that was another reason why it was extremely hard to leave because
Yeah,
We
I
were-
know the feeling.
we were very close.
Yeah.
I had a fear of ending up someone like my dad, because I used to watch a lot of true crime,
Mhm.
and there was this one true crime. It's called Fatal Vows. They had these two psychiatrists, and they would say the statistics on if you abuse, more than likely you're gonna end up with someone who is abusive. And when I heard that, I was like, oh no, that ain't gonna be me. That's not gonna be me. I did everything in my power to make myself the most great person ever. Like, I have no flaws. Like, I really tried hard because all I had was my personality. All these people, they have their GED, and a college degree, they be the most terrible people, but people don't care as long as you can do the job.
Right.
But all I had was my personality. I didn't have anything else.
Even with sharing about how you were kept at home, you didn't even go to public school. You didn't really have homeschooling. You were just taught what they taught you.
And they really
That's-
didn't teach us anything.
Didn't really teach you anything, but yet you have a level head on you. You're smart.
That was because of YouTube and,
Right.
'Cause
You
I
had to
had-
educate yourself.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you what, that's a subject on itself, and how somebody can turn out to be a decent human without even being in
Yes.
school or anything.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that's also where you come into. We can always say that. Oh yeah, if you understood how this person grew up or whatever, and that is true. But we all have a choice.
Yes.
Everybody has a choice, and
Absolutely.
there's a reason why. Like, we could have chosen to just, you know what? It's not my fault that things happen the way they did. I can't help it the way it is.
And
Like,
could have
especially
just,
in your case, and just gone straight down the bad road.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like a lot of there's a huge power in knowing that
Yes.
everything's a choice.
You could have made a choice to do what your dad did.
Yes.
You could have made a choice to do another route, but you're so right. Everybody has to make that choice. I used to be so good at back when I wanted what I wanted, kind of like the narcissism that you were describing with your dad, to where I was able to manipulate her thinking to make her feel like it's her fault where I drank, because I wanted my alcohol. So I was able to flip it to make her look like she's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
The gaslighting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
manipulation.
I was able to control the conversation where she felt like it was literally her fault because I wanted no accountability.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It made you. It made you feel better about yourself.
Yes. It made me feel good. I
Yeah.
feel now justified for why I want my beer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that's-
had. My dad was very much that way. Too.
My dad felt justified in having these two wives thing and treating his kids like this because of the religion. Oh, the white man's bad. Even though most of the people who go to the mosque, they send their kids to public school. If they don't, they're actually homeschooled. My dad is really just a one-off dude.
He just did his own thing.
Yeah, but if he were to go to the mosque and say, I don't take my kids to school, they're homeschooled, they would be like, yeah, they would support him. But the thing is, I wasn't actually homeschooled. That's just something he just told them, and they would
Yeah.
investigate.
They had no
I
other
actually made a YouTube video about the Nation of Islam.
Did you?
Yeah, it was mainly about the leader at the time scandal, and I didn't know nothing about it.
Okay.
And what else? Like, what else? Like, it's about his, he was hanging out with, he was getting teenagers pregnant. The leader at the
Oh.
religion at the time.
Well,
Oh, gotcha.
Malcolm X's.
Yes.
Yeah, his assassination. All of that. It was through all of that. But
Gotcha.
they were all, Malcolm X. That was the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
He was a part of that religion. He followed
Really?
that religion,
Yes.
Nation of Islam. And then he
Okay.
left to go to the Islam the majority of Muslims follow.
Okay. Wow. How fascinating.
One of the things that he found out that his teacher, the guy that helped him get out of prison and change his life, was getting teenagers pregnant. His secretaries, they were all like 15, 16 years old, around teenagers, yeah.
The crazy thing is, if you go and you watch her video, she's got clips and stuff, and you'll see how they don't deny it.
They don't even deny it.
They don't.
They're
even
open
deny
about
it. Yeah, they're.
They don't
not-
open, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
They don't openly say, yeah, she was 16, but they say kind of like, oh, if she was 16, the Quran, the Muhammad from the Quran and the Hadith, he had a 9-year-old wife. They don't say that, oh, yeah, she was 16. They're just saying kind of like...
They worked their way around it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, it's yeah.
To make it sound justified.
Yeah.
To get around. Yeah, I see. That's what a lot of them do.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's I feel like with religion, every different group of religion, it's so easy to
Take a verse
take it to an extreme because they feel justified.
Yeah.
With
It's very easy to twist a verse to fit your own narrative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember even very young age, the things I saw happen to Mom, the things I saw happen to me, my siblings. There was no way I was educated enough to call that sheriff department, call that 911, because we didn't understand. Those were worldly people.
Yeah.
And I sometimes look back, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is if you don't know how to call for help, you report to the church for everything. And that's how a lot of this stuff, all kinds of mental abuse, physical abuse. I endure a lot of physical abuse, even SA abuse.
Yeah.
All this stuff just gets hidden.
It gets swiped under the carpet because they don't want attention on them. And they, it was the same thing for me. In fact, there was one reason I had a hard time leaving was because I stood up. I started standing up to my dad through how he treated Mom. And I was genuinely concerned for her for if I left. Because I would just eventually it got to the point where when he would, when things would start to escalate, I would just say anything. It didn't matter what it was to get him to focus on me instead of her.
To protect your mom.
Yes. Yeah, it was crazy. But like as far as that goes, I remember the day that I realized that my dad will not protect my sisters and my mom. Like he will not protect us at all. In fact, I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow in case somebody comes in because they had. Well, this is not just it's not as much of an Amish thing, I guess, as much as like it was for our family. The way Dad taught us was basically the way he taught us was that it's almost impossible to get to heaven. That's almost impossible. Like we're the right people. If anybody gets to heaven, it's going to be us.
Yeah, that's the way I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same way.
But it's almost impossible. There's so little hope. You just hope that you can get in there. Well, when you explain things in a way like that to someone growing up, someone that's new to the faith or whatever, you're just getting into it, whatever. That's you don't see it as well. There's a hope there. You see it as well. It's almost impossible.
Right.
And so I was like, well, you know what? I guess if somebody breaks into the house, I'm probably going to hell anyways. I might as well go protecting my sisters.
Wow.
Because I had asked him, I was like, hey, what if somebody breaks into the house and he comes upstairs, does something to the sisters or something? And he just looked at me. He was like, no, you can't call the cops. You can't do anything. It does not matter what it is. You just have to let it be. Let them do whatever. And that's the day when it just it was like, oh, it just really settled in. And I had this little eagle knife, folding knife that I started always carrying with me, and I'd keep it under my pillow at home. It was
because you knew you had to protect them. It's your family.
Yeah.
If something bad happened.
Yeah, and it was, it wasn't a healthy mindset at all, but it was, to me, it was like, well, I'm just going to do the best I can. I'm just going to try to live as good of a life as I can, do the best that I can, but evidently I probably won't make it to heaven, so I might as well, I guess, protect my, my sisters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just puts the way you were thinking at that time.
Yeah.
It's always it was a hope that we had, that if we just remain Amish, wear the Amish clothing, just live the Amish lifestyle, that's your best hope. It was never an assurance of salvation.
No, you just hope
Yeah.
that you were saved.
Right.
And anybody who said otherwise was
Yeah.
strictly from the devil, I guess.
Wow, this has been interesting. Is there anything else that any of you wanted to share that we didn't cover?
There's so many little things that led up to me leaving and stuff. It's not. It's just I had to say it, and I'm just now remembering all the little things.
You can share whatever you have.
I know one of them is like it really settled in with me, like what you said, that my dad has no intentions of, me getting my own place, getting my own car. It's like he would give me whatever if it benefits him. And then, like him not giving me a GED doesn't benefit him. Cost him money to get me educated. And if I'm smarter, then I could go against him. It doesn't benefit him. It doesn't. I had money to buy a car, and I was like, well, I want my own car. I want to, they didn't want me to move out. They wanted me to stay there and give them money. It didn't benefit them.
They get something out of it.
Yeah, that's why I had a job.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I gotta go. I don't care. Like, my dad would beat into my head, and he would call all his friends and the other Muslims and tell them that he's just trying to protect me, that I don't understand how unsafe the world is. And I knew the world is unsafe, but I didn't have the words to describe how it's not as unsafe as you're making it out to be. Because if it's really unsafe, why is my other mom going to work at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
And this is in like Riverdale, Georgia. This is kind of like not the ghetto, but it's still a bad area.
Right.
So it's like, well, if it's really that bad, why are you letting your wife come home from work, go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning?
He wanted you to believe it's that bad.
Yeah.
But you're connecting the dots here, like, well, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we grow and mature, we figure things out, even if we were taught differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you think.
Yeah. You just got to think for yourself, if you're allowed to think for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for coming all the way down here. And where do you guys live at now?
Goshen, Indiana.
Goshen, Indiana? Oh, wow. You're like massive population of Amish up there.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, I didn't really like it at first. I've come to it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
But at first I tried to stay away from the Amish as much as
It's
possible.
mainly not really in Goshen. It's mainly Hispanics in Goshen. It's kind of like when you go to
especially
ship.
our area.
Yeah, our area.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of, the former Amish and, coming out of these different groups, whatever religion, not just Amish. The greatest way to heal and move on and make something out of their life is to eliminate from that area of pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what, when I moved, or when I started that job, the window warranty job, I didn't hear the German being spoken. I didn't see any Amish for a year.
Yeah.
And it really, it really helped me, I think. It was, there was the times, the homesickness hits you and all that, but it did me good.
Yeah. The best way to heal is always eliminate from that area of darkness the things that when I first left, there was so much pain here that I refused to speak the Amish language. A lot of former Amish, they work together, they speak it, and they're speaking it fluently. If you don't use it, you lose it. After 8 years, it was the 8th year after I left, I went back and I have Amish clothes on. Mom's trying to always, like she always does, trying to speak the German, Amish language. And I'm like struggling. I'm like, I can understand her, but I'm like, the words don't sound right no more.
Yep.
But I was so determined when I left that's behind me. I will refuse to speak that language. That's what I did for the next 8 to 10 years.
I know the feeling. I had actually, if I knew enough of how things work out here, and I could have, I would have, when I left, I would have gone straight to, I don't know, Hawaii, Alaska, or something way far away. I would have just tried to almost start a new identity.
Right.
That's what I really, really wanted to do. But when you don't have any money and you don't know how things work, you can't do it.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
So.
I even have a cousin that changed his whole last name and let a couple adopt him. There was so much pain there that he wanted a whole new identity.
Wow.
And he just let this couple adopt him, and he got rid of the Yoder name and everything.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I had actually had a couple wanting to adopt me.
Really?
Yes. They have a lot of money. But
Well, that's a plus.
but at that point, I had already come to realize that you can't run away. You have to face your struggles. You have to face them and make peace with them.
Amen.
And so I realized that it's not going to be the answer. So I was like, and something that really held me back too was mom. Mom and I always got along really well. We were close.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that, I knew that would really, really hit mom. And I didn't want that.
Yeah. How is your relationship now? Can you go visit your mom or any of your family?
Yeah. It's very reserved, but I can.
Okay.
They have lifted some of those restrictions, but they're still pretty, not my mom so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad.
The more time that goes on, the more time that passes, it usually changes a little bit.
Yeah.
What about you? Can you still visit?
No, my dad told them to stop talking to me.
Really?
Yeah.
So your dad doesn't want them talking with you at all?
No, because I'm influencing them. Because they would tell me, oh, he said this, he's doing this, and I would tell them, well, call the police, oh, call CPS, oh, don't agree with that, this is wrong. I'm, yeah.
I see what he's doing there, because when you talked about that behavior, narcissism, if he can't control you, he's gonna try to control them. Saying, "See, I see that behavior."
Yeah.
To try to turn them against you as you're the bad because he couldn't control you.
One time, like my dad, I forgot to mention, my dad does do drugs, so that plays a part in it. And my dad probably is really mentally ill. He doesn't want to do anything about it. Doesn't probably believe that he's mentally ill.
Right.
One time, for example, he told my mom, my sister told me this, he told my mom that I am a weed smoking lesbian and I'm couch hopping. And my dad was like crying and he was on the floor thrashing and stuff like that. And then my sister told me that my mom was crying like, oh, my daughter. And then she told me, like, are you doing that? I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? She said that he got this revelation.
Oh, my God.
He said he got this revelation. My sister Jamie, she asked him, she asked my dad, like, okay, where did you get that? And he was like, it's none of your business where I got it.
He just made it up.
And it's not just me, it's my other siblings that also don't really talk to him too. It's everybody. It's not even just my sister. It's anybody and everybody. He says things about you. Just...
He thinks I'm with the FBI and I'm just... I got with her to try to get the scoop on him, so...
Oh my goodness!
but his own brother, her uncle, was telling me a couple weeks ago that he, his dad is, or her dad is, he said I've met, white racists. I've met black racists, but he said, her dad is the racist one that he's ever met. And it's kind of the same, I've talked with him on the phone, and I gotta agree. And like his own brothers, they do not like him.
Like actually, it's not even just his brother. It's most of his family members. Most of him from my dad's side don't want nothing to do with him. They either seen him like that or they heard stories, and they just don't. They don't invite him for Thanksgiving. They don't invite him to anything.
Wow. Well, that tells you a lot.
Yeah.
How he really did want to do his own thing. It wasn't a church or religion. He just wanted to be in control and do it his way.
Yeah, and there's the stories that came out for even when he was younger. Some of the stuff he did, I don't think it would even be appropriate to talk about here. But then it's you hear all that. You hear the stories from like his brothers telling us those stories. It's just like it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, my older brother from my dad's first marriage. He wanted the second wife with her. She said no, I'm not doing that. And yeah, she divorced him.
Oh wow.
And like he left that family. Like he had kids with her, never seen them. Like he just like, you know what, I'm out. And then did his own thing.
Yeah. Just to wrap it up, the most powerful relationships is what you've been through it. You've been through it. That's who God brings together to have the most. I mean, if you'd have got with somebody that doesn't understand you, how's she supposed to help you heal? You can help her heal, because this is how God works. You can help her heal, she can help you heal.
Yeah, there was. It did work that way. There was certain aspects of healing that I needed. That I definitely, when we got together. Well, one of those was just simply love.
Yeah.
I had a concept of what love was, but I didn't understand it.
Didn't understand it.
Yeah. And I realized, like there's also certain healings that it's really like it's not just gonna come from her.
Yeah.
But it does. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, we come from a culture that there's no affection.
No.
So you have to learn that as you go along.
Yeah.
My first one was, she asked me one time, like, do you hate me? And I remember how stunned I was. I'm like, what do you mean I hate you? Why would I hate you? I'm providing for you, a roof over your head, I'm feeding you. I looked at that as love.
Yeah.
And she's looking for that affection.
The show of affection. Yes, I know. That was something I had kind of gotten used to it a little bit more, by the time I met her.
Mm-hmm.
But when I first left, or in our home growing up, there was nothing like that. That was as kids. I don't even know how we would have reacted to seeing Dad show love to Mom. Like,
Yeah, it's
I really don't. That would have been absolutely. That would have been frightening. But,
yeah, it's just in the Amish culture. Just you don't do that. That's
Yeah.
it's too sexualized to
Yes.
express it or show it or hug or kiss or say I love you.
I think to be honest, I think that's why they have some of the problems they do.
Yes. Well, when you take love out of it,
What do you have?
what do you have left? Chaos.
Bible says, that's the first commandment is to love.
Yes.
And I feel like that is one of the biggest things.
Yep.
That's just part of the reason why things things go the way they do.
Love
sometimes.
brings unity every
Yeah.
time. Love destroys religious barriers. Love destroys political barriers. Love destroys narcissism, control, lies.
Yeah.
Love brings it all together, knits it together.
Yeah.
Man, I could talk about that forever. I could literally talk to you guys. This is the longest interview I've ever done.
Really?
I could talk to you guys. I worked for 2 hours in.
Oh wow.
I could talk to you guys forever.
Do you ever do like Q&As? Like people can ask questions?
Sometimes yes. Sometimes
Oh,
I do
okay.
Q&A. But then we would have to bring the phone all the way up here and then see the Q&A.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be able to see the live from your phone and see the question?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we can
I
always.
guess. Well,
You can always go on here and then see the live and answer people back on the live. Like right now, here's the. Let's see what we got here. Trying to see if there's any questions we can get to real quick. Nope. Oh, the Q&A thing is turned off. Oh, there it is. Is the other guy ex-Amish too? Yes, ex-Amish. I like this combination, Cindy says.
okay.
Andrew Hoffer, that's a Hutterite name. Please share your story. It's so interesting. Guess everyone got April Keith. Do you know any Amish from Smicksboro? Oh yeah, I know a bunch of Amish from over there. Can't go back further than that. Let's see here. It's got to be more. Maybe not. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there's more on there. There probably is, but it's glitching out.
Yeah.
It's lagging. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you very much, you
You're
two, for
welcome.
coming from Goshen, Indiana, down here to Ohio. I just went to LaGrange, Indiana, and interviewed a Josh Yoder just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes I travel and get out there too. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys wanting to come down here to Ohio, to my house, and be interviewed. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing everything you shared.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for watching.